Another weekend of championship action is done and dusted. It's time I sit down and tell you what we learnt from the weekend just gone. Let's go. As always, if you do find value from the content, please make sure you leave a like and subscribe. We're edging closer to 10,000 subscribers. You can do it for free by hitting the button below. And also, in the comments, tell me how you reflect on your team's weekend performance. Let's begin at Ellen Road as they hosted Sheffield United on Friday night. It finishes Leeds 2, Sheffield United 0. Let's start with the home side and the winning side Leeds. Their XG 1.19. The biggest thing we learned about them in this game is just how brilliant this Rothwell and Tanaka partnership is looking right now. From replacements to what now looks like some of the most important players in this team. They were phenomenal on Friday night. Let's delve into why that's the case. Now, I'll be honest, there's something about a player that makes a game tick, collects the ball from the back line and transitions the ball forward in a variety of ways. And a side that's so desperate to keep total control of matches, Joe Rothwell is the perfect man. He's been some signing on loan from Bournemouth. His heat map is so fascinating and shows him often collecting the ball in 4 different half spaces, 2 in his own half and 2 in Sheffield United's half, whereas Leeds before would operate with 2 more traditional 6s in Ampadu and Gruev. Adding a far more technically gifted ball player in the middle brings a whole new progressive dynamic to the table. To visualise exactly what I mean about the receiving positions of Joe Rothwell in this game, these are 3 screenshots showing him in different areas, collecting the ball inside his own half. By moving wider in possession, it allows both fullbacks to stay high, the centre-backs can spread wide, and Rothwell can provide another direction to start building up intricately. The pass map on the screen now shows the sheer amount of passes that are completed between both centre-backs and Rothwell on Friday night. The thickness of the line shows how often the combination was used. Rothwell himself finished the game with the most progressive passes with 11, with 9 heading into the final third and 3 big chances created. Next to him was Tanaka, and he's getting more and more exciting by the game. He is a fascinating talent that is already bringing so much to this Leeds team. Let's break it down, let's explore that, because describing him, I think he's a really difficult thing to do at the moment, because he's a real blend of different midfield roles. I've watched back most of his 75 successful passes from Friday night, and the calmness he shows in possession is scarily good. He covers so much ground and therefore finds himself in so many different positions to actually pass the ball. To show you exactly where he does indeed actually pass the ball, this is a graphic created by the brilliant people at Opta, who have given us the opportunity to visually understand just how many times he wants to move the ball. These are all 175 of his successful passes. Only 17 didn't go to a teammate. Johnny Cooper, who works for Opta, said that the 175 passes that Tanaka has completed is the most by a Leeds player in their first 3 league starts since 2013. And something else as well, before we move on, I don't think many people will mention this, but Tanaka is a footballer that has never played in England before. Yes, at a very good level abroad, but physically, he does not look phased or out of place in the slightest. It's so impressive. Excluding the centre-backs of Leeds, he touched the ball the most on Friday, getting on the board 89 times. He completed 1 key pass, created 1 chance, and 14 passes into the final third. For context, that's only 1 less than O'Hare, Hamer and our blaster of Sheffield United combined. He was fantastic. Him and Rothwell were crucial in Leeds United winning so comfortably against their rivals Sheffield United on Friday. As for Sheffield United, the biggest takeaway for them in this game is that Chris Wilder got it wrong, I think. He explained his reasoning behind adding an extra body into that back line and reverting to the 3 at the back that we've seen him play as Sheffield United manager for a long time. But on reflection, I think it hindered a lot of what Sheffield United have looked so good at this season. I actually thought the switch made things look really forced when United did eventually get hold of the ball. Their work out of possession was comfortably second best. Their work with it, though, I mean, it was even worse. It was really, really bad. This graph shows Sheffield United's real lack of control and just very few moments during the game. There's a bit of blue there, but even when there is, the bars aren't very big. It's a sprinkle of blue and not much else. And the XG does back that statement up. They created an XG of 0.2, failing to create a single big chance and only managed 5 touches inside the opposition box. 15 less than Leeds. Nobody has a crystal ball, and hindsight is wonderful. But sometimes if it isn't broke and you're scoring goals for fun, you look fluid in the way that you're playing defensively, look really strong as well, you have to ask yourself, do you need to fix it? I think Chris Wilder got this wrong. I think he admitted he got it wrong in his post-match interview. they looked really poor against Sheffield United. Leeds were fantastic, don't get me wrong, but there was a reason behind that. I don't think he needed to change it. Things were looking good. And defensively, that's what he was most worried about. And they've been pretty good in their old system. I think they'll be reverting back to that pretty quickly. This didn't work. Next up, instead of a game, I want to take stock after 10 championship matches. We've reached our first set of 10. I think it's a good opportunity to just see where we're at and look at some pieces of data and a few metrics to help us understand where every club is currently at. This is a website called Opta Analyst. This is not sponsored. I just use this website a lot to make these videos. And I wanted to, I guess, just show you a few bits of information you might not be able to see all of the time. You can see this all the time. This website is free, but I thought I would sort of simplify it at times and just get to the good stuff. Right, let's start off with expected goals because we bang on about XG all of the time. Who has the highest XG in the Championship after 10 games? The answer is Middlesbrough, 16.65. But you can see to the left, they've only scored 10 open play goals. Goals versus XG is minus 6.65, which essentially means they are heavily underperforming their XG and they could have scored far more. Their conversion is poor, and we can find out the worst conversion here. Cardiff have the worst with 4.21%. Middlesbrough, though, as expected, second worst with a conversion rate of 6.33. They have to be better in front of goal because you can see they're creating chances. The XG is very healthy, but they're not taking those opportunities. And if they were, that goals tally would be looking far better. Leeds in second with 16.08. Norwich 15.37. And interestingly, Millwall have an XG of 15.35, the fourth highest in the league. If you told us that at the start of the season with the way that Neil Harris is normally expecting a side to set up, I don't think we would have had Millwall in that position. They're creating chances. In terms of the worst XG, who's creating the least? Cardiff, 7.29. I think we probably could have expected that. I mean, yesterday's 5-0 victory would have helped. And interestingly, the team they beat 5-0 have the second worst XG, 8.28. Burnley, 8.33, which means the chances that they're creating are not very high. The XG are not high on those efforts, but their XG to goals is 5.67, which means they're being extremely clinical and scoring more goals than the chances, or the quality of chances, do expect. So Burnley, who are having a good season, when you look at the results, their expected goals has them third lowest. They're taking their chances and they're scoring worldies. You combine both of those together, that's how you can outperform your XG so comfortably. And you can see where their conversion rate's high, 14.29 for their conversion rate. So like I said, they're clinical in front of goal. But Burnley, so high in the league table, but so low when it comes to expected goals. Pompey fans, this is not a drill. This really did happen. QPR 1, Portsmouth 2. The biggest thing we learned about Pompey is they can actually win a game in the Championship, and this win now must be a springboard and must be the start. I think what was so revealing about this performance is that already in the Championship, they've played better than that and not got this result. This was not pretty. It really was not pretty, but boy, was it crucial. This graph shows us how equal this game was. Both teams got things right at points. Both teams allowed it to shift in any direction. I think Pompey edged it, and it was a fair result just about in the end. It was patchy, really patchy. Messina spoke after the game about not wanting to make it an eventful match and actually trying to diligently grind themselves through the contest. And on reflection, I think that's probably a good way of describing this game. It's not the approach that Pompey fans have bought into over the last 18 months, of course, but in the Championship, when times are tough, it's a brilliant strength to pull out and flex, because I'll read you some numbers out. It wasn't pretty. Pompey completed just 139 passes, only had 3 shots from inside the box, and get this, I couldn't quite believe this, a 50% pass accuracy. 1 in 2 passes that Pompey made in this game didn't go to its intended target. It can't and won't be like that every single week, but getting the first is beyond crucial. And to do it when you're not at your best, and to do it when you're definitely not at your best, I think is arguably better, because it's now a case of we can do it. I spoke to Tom on the phone this morning. This is what I like to call a convincer. It's a convincer type of performance. It's a body of evidence that shows this group can win away from home too. At this level, I don't think the overall performance can be replicated, but it's 3 very important points on the table, and it's time to build. When Freddie Potts signed for Portsmouth in the summer, I knew they'd got one hell of a midfielder, and since his first opportunity in the starting 11, he has not turned back. The all-action midfielder was involved in so many aspects of the game yesterday. Of course, he scored 2. He finished the match with the most ground duels won, the 3rd most defensive actions completed, and the best pass accuracy by a Pompey player on the day. He was a brilliant player in that midfield for Pompey. There might be a few question marks over the pivot partner Marlon Pack, but the effect of Freddie Potts has definitely added a much needed bite to the setup of Pompey's midfield, because it was far too easy to play through in the early stages of the season. And even when they were losing games, you still felt that Freddie Potts looked like a class act. And when you're winning 2 and you're playing and continuing to play like that as a midfielder, you're going to get your flowers. He was brilliant on Saturday. Really good. As for QPR, I talk about what we learnt. Lessons need to be learnt at QPR, because it all feels very timid and very dangerous, actually, because what I mean by that is everything looks like it's lacking conviction and they're second-guessing every decision they make, and that is a very, very dangerous place to be. At the foot of the table, to be saying those sorts of things, it's a real concern. Sloppy in possession at times, but also very passive when they did get hold of it, because don't get me wrong, they did have chances. The first half in particular, there were opportunities, but they also made a lot of passes. And those two things did not run parallel. I'm worried for QPR. They'll always find a way, won't they? They always do, QPR in the Championship. But if we're being honest, Marty's got his work cut out. He saved them last season. He's going to have to try and save them again, because at the moment, they're a real concern for me.